Hey friends, Donovan here with Trumpet Thoughts and Ernie Williamson Music. Have you seen this thing? If you're anything like me, you saw this when it first came out and thought like, man, trumpet players, just a bunch of suckers, man. We'll spend anything for the promise of higher notes, you know? And so I just chalked it up as a gimmick and didn't think much about it. And then when Larry started putting out some promotional content, had some other players on it, I'm like, well, there must be something to this because he's got some heavy hitters that have agreed to kind of like endorse or promote this thing. So I was like, well, there must be something to it. So I'm fortunate enough to be in a situation where I can drop the 50 or 70 bucks, whatever this was, and not have it be the end of my world. And so I thought, well, I'll just try it. And so when you buy this thing, you get this, and you get some rubber hoses, and then you get the video and a little e-booklet of like how to use this thing. And when I first got it, I thought like, really most of the value is in the written content, and you could kind of do much of the same exercises without really ever having this thing. And by and large, I think that's true. However, what this thing does is it allows you to see the results of the exercises that you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, this is probably the only way you can have that shown to you that what you're doing is wrong. And if you do know what you're doing, then you probably don't need this. And you probably wouldn't have bought it in the first place. Does that make any sense? So here's essentially the Cliff Notes version of how this thing's supposed to be used. So it's not really a thing that you like putting around and blow. You don't do that. What you're doing is you're holding air in your mouth, and then almost like when you're circular breathing or something, you're just pushing that air forward with your tongue towards your lips, and you're trying to compress that. And so you're not blowing in it, okay? You're just filling your mouth with air, probably, honestly, maybe 30% air in your mouth. And then you're just compressing that forward with your tongue, and this hose goes into the mouthpiece, and it's essentially a sealed system, and then this dial is roughly showing you kind of like the pressure that you're generating. These may not be the exact right terms, but let's get enough for you to like get a sense of it. Now, if you try to just blow into it, so this is blowing like that. I mean, like I'm blowing my tail off, and it went up to, is that 100? I'm looking at it backwards, friends, so I can't quite tell. Yeah, somewhere right around there. It's really difficult to do. But that's not really what it's designed to do. What it's supposed to be doing is you're strengthening the muscles of your tongue, which any of my TCE guys would have been like, ooh, muscles of your tongue, and then the resistance of your lips here to this doodad. And it measures that. And the measurement of this is, well, here, I'll show you that. Like that. So that measurement is really interesting because the measurement tells you the resistance, but here's why that's so interesting. One, if it's really low, like if you're below 100, that's telling you one of two things. Either your embouchure is just like really, really, really weak, or you're not doing it right. And so that's the first thing. Like first thing you try, you kind of realize like, oh, I'm kind of having a hard time getting. When I first started using this, I was like 120 was about as high as I could go. And so you kind of like you start to mess around here a little bit, try to get that number, figure out what the number is. So I would say when you first start, if you're like 60 or 80 or something, you're probably like blowing or whatever, and you're not like compressing the air right. And then after a while, you'll start to get it where it goes over 100, and you can feel like, okay, I can do it while I'm breathing in and out of my nose, like that. So I can keep doing that. So these things are separate, right? Not that you have to breathe in and out of your nose, you just can to show that you're not blowing. And I'm getting the feeling of my tongue going forward. So that's like the first thing you learn. Then eventually, as you start messing around with it, you start to figure out, well, how can I get this thing? Because I was stuck around that 120 to 140 range forever. And I'll be honest, I've never like done the whole program of do this thing for like 3 weeks or 3 months or however long he says. I'd do it for a little bit here and there, put it away and be like, I don't know. But here lately, I've got an important gig coming up, and so I've been wanting to try to get in shape. And I thought, like, I think if I had more like embouchure security and firmness here, I think that would help me be ready for this gig coming up. And so I've been back to using this thing while I'm sitting on the couch watching movies with the wife, and so I find that it is very effective at that. Like, even if you're not going to maximize it the way that I'm getting ready to show you, just doing this. Just doing that is very effective at building the strength you kind of need here. Now, once you get the right feeling, you don't have to have the little dial thing. You can do that same thing with just having your mouthpiece and putting your finger within to close it. And you can do the same thing that way. But what this doodad does that makes it handy is you get to see the visual readout of your effectiveness. And so the first thing you can see is like, okay, am I getting the numbers where I want them to be? And I think a good place to be is, somewhere in the mid, that between 100 and 200 is kind of like I guess if your first target goal is to get over 100, and the next target is to get somewhere between 100 and 200, and then probably the next target is to get over 200. And when Larry does it, I think he can get up to like 260, 280, something like that. But what I found with me is, as I've been practicing this, I start then thinking about my tongue and embouchure, and can I set them up in a way to create more resistance so that number goes higher? And so, like I said, when I first started doing this earlier this week, as I started playing this again, 140 was about my limit, and I've just I'll do it a few, I don't know, maybe 2 to 6 times a day is about all I've been doing it. You can do it more. I just don't think about it because I'm lazy. But I'll try to figure out, well, how can I get the number higher? And as I get tired, you can see the number starts to go down. But to get it higher, I'm really that tongue is going, I'm using tongue-controlled embouchure, so my tongue's through my teeth. And I'm like just wedged up against those lips. And so I think the only way that players like Larry and the other guys who can get this dial cranked up over to 200 is that when they're over 200, I think their tongue is over their teeth. And it's just like pushing that last little pocket of air, that last little bubble of air against their embouchure. And that's how it's cranking the number. There's no way they're doing it with like the air that's all the way back here in the mouth, and like tongue is way back in their mouth, even down behind their teeth, and you just can't, because there's too much surface area here, and that the air will spread its way all the way around the face here, which isn't really what you want. So when I have that tongue back behind my teeth and I'm trying to arch it forward, you can see like of course I'm looking at this all in reverse, mind you, but those numbers are around 140, which is how I've been doing it every time I try to do this thing. But when I put my tongue over my teeth and arch it to the point where it's like pressing up against my lips, then you get the bigger numbers. So yeah, and as you can hear the like little spitty sounds. Super fun to hear me do this while we're trying to watch a movie. If you're in the tear-jerker part of a movie and I'm over going like, you can just imagine how much fun that is. So anyway, that's the compression trainer system sold by Larry Margolano. This is not a paid promotion or whatever. I don't sell these products, although maybe I should. I do like it. But I have found this to be very useful this week especially. I've been messing with it more intentionally, and I found like both rehearsals that I've had this week, I've had 3 rehearsals, and I found them both to be way easier after having spent some time with this thing. And it's definitely building up that resistance. And some of you can say, well, you could get that same benefits through practice. And you might be true, you might be right, but you'd have to do 2 things. One, you'd have to be practicing in a way that is creating that extreme compression, which most of us don't do that. And 2, if you're going to practice to the point of fatigue, it takes a long time. It may also develop some bad habits, because you're going to have that means you're going to have that mouthpiece on your face a long time, and as your mouthpiece is on your face a long time, it's pushing the blood away from your muscle a long time, and as it's pushing the blood away from your muscle a long time, you can damage that muscle and bruise that muscle and cause soreness to that muscle. This thing takes hardly any time at all for you to get tired. Like, you could just see the few times I did it, like its performance started going down. You do this thing 6, 8, 10, 12 times in a set, and then do a few sets a day. You'll spend a total of a couple of minutes doing it, and you're getting a really good embouchure workout. So that's my thoughts on this. I think it's money well spent. I think if you want to figure out tongue compression, I think this is a great way to visualize it and see it. And I think if you just want to build overall strength and you want to be able to do it quickly and way faster than you can do it on the horn, I think this is a good way to do it. All right, friends. Thanks for watching. What do you think? Do you have one of these? Do you use it? Think it's a gimmick? If you think it's a gimmick and you haven't tried it, I don't really value your opinion that much. You should at least try it before you make a decision or judgment. Let me know what you think.